Just want to feel the feeling of being with you. It's very wonderful. It's something very special that we are getting together again. First time since Purim. And this is another very auspicious time. So I'm going to start with with your permission. I will start just with a little bit of a traditional that everybody should know. It's a praise song for Shimon Bar Yochai. So we're featuring, we're actually recognizing the greatness of Shimon Bar Yochai on this day because it is traditionally recognized as the yahrzeit of Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. Reb Shimon Bar Yochai is very important. Everybody knows that the Zohar is attributed to him. But when I think of Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, I think of the archetype of Guru Rinpoche. Guru Rinpoche, Padmasambhava, is in many ways seems to me to be the same archetype within Tibetan Buddhism that Reb Shimon Bar Yochai represents for us. And so from the planetary perspective, we're tuning into something like maybe the most powerful channel of esoteric transmission that there could be. Is it representing in Jewish esotericism with the centrality and importance of Sefer Zohar? It really doesn't make any difference whether that's historically the case or not. It's the power of the energy that comes through the Zohar. And those who brought it through, presumably for the most part in Spain in the 13th century, recognized that the source of the transmission that they were receiving was coming from the neshama of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. So one way or the other, that's the way that it's helpful to recognize that there are sources of divine wisdom, and those sources could be, sometimes if we're very lucky, they're in this world, but it's very rare that there is a neshama like Rashbi, Shimon Bar Yochai in this world, or Padmasambhava, Guru Rinpoche, because they're really kind of avataric souls. They are manifestations of divinity in a human form that only appear very rarely when there's a great need for them. And so Rashbi is like that, is like Guru Rinpoche. And the thing about it is, even though they only appear rarely, actually in this world, after they leave this world, they ascend. In other words, you can call them, it's very popular these days, people talk about the ascended masters, and or the hierarchy of higher beings that are motivated by divine love to such an extent that even after they leave this world, they continue to have the greatest interest in its well-being. And I think I want to add something that's really very important, and that is that, actually, when following up, Mordecai asked the question the other day concerning the ascended masters, this hierarchy of intelligences that are the souls of beings like Shimon Bar Yochai, who are continuing to watch over us and be available to us if we turn to them, if we can connect them, they will help us. So the question is, but not all higher beings are necessarily beneficent. This is like, it's very important to be connected to the right sources. That's why one of the reasons why we remember Shimon, we make it a point to remember Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai every single year, because we have to stay in touch with those sources that really care about us and that will help us, and they're not out to exploit us, because there are also such sources like that. So we want to be aligned with the sources of love and sources of real love. But the issue is, the question raised that begging to be answered is, if we say that we're under the guidance and protection and care of divine love, why are we in this world that is falling apart like this? And so I just want to give a kind of general answer to this question, not go into specifics or get hung up on that, but to recognize an important klal, an important principle. And that important principle is the principle of bechira. Bechira means freedom to decide for yourself. It's free, what we call free will. What free will means is that even though there is only one source of everything, and that source has as one of its properties love, or a combination of love and wisdom, even nevertheless, in its love and wisdom, it manifests a world in which every entity has freedom to be the way it wants to be. It's not, if it were a world, if it would just compel everybody to be good, the way it would say some ideal way that everything should be the way anyone or any mind or even the highest consciousness would want to be, if everything were compelled, there would be nothing, no reason for that world to exist. It would be like having, just a picture on the wall of something that in which nothing would ever happen. There would be nothing to do, nothing to achieve, and, no process, no evolution, no development. And the issue is, the way it's always expressed is really that in the Zohar and teachings that are attributed to Rashbi and elsewhere, is the idea that if each neshama, or if each entity that gets to manifest in the world did not have to undergo tests, nishyanot, like Avraham Avinu had to go through 10 major tests. If a being didn't have to undergo tests in which they really could do the wrong thing, it would be shameful. Is that everybody wants to feel, ultimately, the more you're able to ascend, the more you're able to recognize the nature of reality, which is the underlying inherent substance of divine love. It's also called the Ore Ein Sof, infinite light. There's a payoff every time we return to that light, we can find that light. And so there has to be resistance so that there can be a payoff. That's what's called rewards, Tzahar v'onesh, it's reward and punishment. Without that system, it wouldn't be, what would it be? It would be a game that's not worth playing. You have to, there has to be the fact that there's a risk. Some people use the term hazard. Life is hazardous. It's risky, it's hazardous. And that in some ways, when it overwhelms us or overcomes us, so we really are tested. But it's precisely that test that makes it so wonderful. Because the fact is, we can constantly heal ourselves. We can constantly practice the healing arts that are called the tikkunei nefesh. Tikkun nefesh is fixing, healing that manifestation, that embodied consciousness that we find ourselves. So you have to have this free will thing. That's why the world can be absolutely overwhelmingly contrary to the way we would like it to be, because ultimately the divine is erech apayim, is long-suffering, but only to a certain degree. Even the most long-sufferingness, the greatest patience that is exercised by divinity has certain limits. So it comes, there is the need to there is going to be a rebalancing that comes through, and there are certain things that are especially dear to that, to the divine mind, heart, being that is enabling and permitting everything to be the way that it is. So it will protect. There is particular protection. Hashgacha called hashgacha pratit. Big term for it is divine providence. There is this hashgacha pratit. That means under certain circumstances, where necessary, there's an override of the free will mechanism. But the world itself, for the most part, it has to get its act together. Because God won't just jump in and change it to something else. It has to get its act together. And it's for that reason, I think that Reb Nachman says it's sort of each phase. It's not, you can never give up, regardless of how overwhelming things may look. You can't give up because it's the tikkun olam does depend on the activity of the tzaddikim. Let's say the evolving tzaddikim, the tzaddikim in training. That's to say the bodhisattva energy is the energy that heals. And for that reason, we can, those of us who know what we're talking about, what this energy, what healing energy is, can never give up. Because you just have to see, no matter how tested, you can never give up, because that's what you're here for. You're here to be a healer. You're here to be a fixer. So one of the greatest healers, the greatest fixers that we ever had in our tradition is Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. And Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai has such a rare an event of being in this world in order to deposit in it, just like Guru Rinpoche, just like Padma Sambhava, not only teachings that were accessible, when they came through his mind body in this world, but more importantly, the termas that he deposited. That's to say, termas is the Tibetan term meaning those teachings that were planted so that they could be discovered, la'atid lavo, they'd be discovered by the tzaddikim in future times. Let's say the tzaddikim in training, let's say people like us, Rashbi left teachings here, which is basically what the Zohar is. The Zohar is not like anything simple at all. It isn't something like there's one meaning, it means this or it means that. There are so many hidden meanings concealed in it. There's a meaning, there's a source of healing for every single person who is able to approach the Zohar with a pure heart and with Amunah. That Rashbi left here something for you. That's how great it is. You have to find it. So we have to find it for ourselves, but it's basically unlimited. So I just want to get in for the COVID, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. I'm just going to sing a little bit of this Megan that is called Shiur Bar Yochai, the song of Bar Yochai. It goes like this. Bar Yochai nimshachta shrecha shemen sason mecha. Bar Yochai shemen mishkat kodesh nimshachta mimidad hakodesh nasata tzitz nezer hakodesh Chavusha roshcha perecha Bar Yochai nimshachta ashrecha shemen sason mecha. May come back to that. Bar Yochai, you are anointed, nimshachta, anointed with the holy oil. The holy oil is the descent of the Shekinah. It's the descent of Ruach Haaretz. It's called the holy oil. Abraham Abulafia talked about it and said when a neshama is able to position itself into a prophetic state, when you can put your mind and heart into a prophetic state, one of the signs is you will feel as if the holy anointing oil is dripping down over you. You feel that. That's a feeling is sometimes called love bliss, that you actually physically experience. You feel the experience of this unbelievably pleasant, fluid-like energy coming down from above, and as if it's anointing you. So it says in the Shiur, it says, Bar Yochai nimshachta, you were anointed. I mean, you were blessed with the holy oil of Ruach HaKodesh. And to be in that bliss state, which is why it says Asherecha. That's why you are so fortunate. You are so happy. Shemen sason, because it's the oil of joy. Mecha v'recha, that you receive from your chevra. Because in order for Shimon Bar Yochai, for Rashbi to manifest and do his thing, you have to have a mandala. What do you mean by the mandala is called the chavraya. The mandala, you have to have a group of souls that can establish the flow of Ruach HaKodesh in a form of teaching that remains, that comes down to earth and stays here, so that people in the future who have need of it will also be able to have access to it. You have to have a mandala. And that's part of why it says Ashrecha, because he had this Havrai. He wasn't just like, there was a certain period in his life where he had to, because the Romans were persecuting anybody who was teaching Torah, he had to flee from the Romans. He fled from the Romans and he hid in a cave. The legend is that he stayed in that cave for years, surviving on the basis of a carob tree. He was eating carob and drinking pure water. So he was kind of like Milarepa in a way, because he had this ascetic period. He was in that cave, only he, Rashbi and his son. And the result was he became so pure because Eliyahu Hanavi was coming and teaching him Torah every single day in the cave. He didn't have to do anything. He just buried himself because his clothes all wore off. So he buried himself in the sand in the cave, just sat there, sitting there. And that was his yeshiva, sitting in this cave, munching on a carob once a day, taking a drink of very pure water, and receiving the highest Torah that had ever been disseminated from above into this world. So naturally, when the coast was cleared and he got the message that it was safe for him to come out of the cave, so he was so pure that when he came out of the cave, everything he saw seemed just horrible. Everything he saw, the world just looked horrible. It was so horrible, he couldn't stand anybody that he saw. Nobody was in a high enough madrega. And he was just, he was pure fire. He was so fiery and so full of being that a heavenly voice had to speak to him and say, Rashbi, this is not the way you come out of that cave. Now you'll have to go right back in the cave again. He had to go back in the cave for the same period of time to balance all that fire so that he could come out and see the beauty of the world. See the beauty of the world. Now, when I say the beauty of the world, I'm talking about the quality of Od. So, and everybody knows that Lag BaOmer, which is the Yortzeit of Rashbi, is Od Shebahod. It's the day that is called the Hod of Hod. It's the hodiest part of Hod. It's the very essence of Hod. And what is this Hod? Hod is what you're grateful for. The Hod is like I'm thankful. This is what I'm thankful for. It's what I love. I see what I can see is beautiful. But the problem with Hod on its own is that everybody sees a different Hod. What's beautiful from one person's perspective is not beautiful from another person's perspective. You have Hod, this Hod, that Hod, the other Hod. And that, when you have all these different perspectives of beauty, that is called the consciousness of Olam HaTohu. So it's a consciousness of the world of chaos. And the world of chaos is a world of chaos. What we are here to do is for the Tikkun Olam. So we are here for the Olam HaTikkun. The Olam HaTikkun is the world, is the consciousness that fixes the seeming separateness, the separate pointness. The world of chaos is a world of nikudot. It's like separate points. The point of this consciousness, this mind, this neshama, those points do not reinforce each other. And so the result of the energy of the Olam HaTohu is called Shiur, the Kelim. the blasting apart of the vessels. And the reason the vessels break is because there's no cooperation. Because everyone is out for themselves. Every point is out for what it thinks, what it's mode. I like this. Never mind what you like. So the symbolism is that we have the legend that during Shiur of Omer, the students of Rabbi Akiva were dying like flies. There was a plague. And all the students of Rabbi Akiva was the spiritual master of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's teacher was Rabbi Akiva. And they just were dying like flies until Lag BaOmer. Lag BaOmer had the energy to heal that plague. But what was the reason that what was the nature of the plague? Why were they dying? The Gemara says they were dying because they didn't respect each other. In other words, they were doing Shiur of Omer from a self-interested perspective. And you have to recognize everybody starts there. You start with self-interest. You might have good, that's sort of like the level of Spinoza. You start out as a Spinozan. You have to be for your, Hillel says, if I'm not for myself, then who's going to be for me? So you have to be for yourself to start out. But ultimately, you have to move beyond that because otherwise you're just increasing, you're creating a plague consciousness. You're bringing the Olam HaTohu, the world of chaos. You're strengthening the world of chaos. You are not fixing it and healing. But when the light of Lag BaOmer appeared, it healed the plague because the light of Lag BaOmer is the Hod Shebahod. The Hod Shebahod means that the light is so strong that you can see the pnimiut of every Hod, pnimiut of appreciation that each person has is on the inside the same thing. There's a source to beauty. It's the manifestation of beauty may look one way to one person or one way to another person, but the beauty of beauty is the same for every person. That's the Hod Shebahod, the beauty of the beauty. That's to say that source of that beauty is the same for every single person. When you come to Lag BaOmer, it's the energy of Rabbi Shimon. The light that's revealed is the beauty of beauty, the source of all the beauty, which is the one source. That is the true beauty, the beauty that enables every type of beauty to be what it is, in which every type of beauty depends on, or it couldn't be beauty. And that's why Soho becomes Modex. I recognize that God is the source of all this beauty. Not only that, but it's associated with the arrival. You have to remember that Lag BaOmer is getting very close to Shavuot. The closer you get to Shavuot, the closer to the recognition of God one becomes. And as that increases, and which you cannot get to unless you get to Lag BaOmer, because up to Lag BaOmer, you're in Kivyachol Olam HaTohu, because you're out for yourself. You're doing tshuva for yourself, which you have to do initially. You don't care about yourself, you're not going to take yourself in hand. You're not going to do tshuva in the first place. But you can't go to the tshuva al ha-tshuva, Reb Nachman says you have to do tshuva on your tshuva. When you do tshuva on your tshuva, it's when you recognize the whole reason you were doing the tshuva is really because you want to be closer to God. But the closer you come to God, the more you realize what? There isn't anything. There is no other. Ain't no vado. And when you realize ain't no vado, then you can't just be out for yourself, because that same one, when you look in anyone's eyes, you're seeing the same being. You're seeing exactly the same one. You look into any heart and any soul, you're seeing the same one. It only looks different on the outside. On the inside, it's the same one. And the more you can see that's the same one, there's only one there, the closer you are to Shiur. Because that's where you have to be. You have to be there. So the Torah says, we have a verse in Shemot. The verse says, V'yashvu midbar Sinai. They come to Sinai. They're going through the desert. They come to the Sinai. The Yachnu b'midbar, and the Yachnu means they rested. They camped in the wilderness. But the secret of the Yachnu is Vayichenu. They saw the chen in each other. They saw the beauty in each other's eyes and soul. And then they go on to, they become, in order to get to see to the moment when they are worthy, they have become a mandala, which can draw Torah down to it and hold that Torah. They have to see the chen in each other's eyes. They have to see the graciousness, the beauty, the charm. That's to say, the divine presence in each other's eyes. When they do that, then the Torah says, like ish echad v'lev echad. They become like one person with one heart. That's where Bob Marley got that, one heart. One person, one heart. Yeah, it's true, but you've got to do tshuva to get that. That's the problem. You can't, that's why you cannot give up, because it is really true, but it won't become real unless we do it, unless we make it real, unless we get to Sinai, and to get to Sinai, you have got to go through Lag BaOmer, you have got to go through the Hod Shebahod. If you don't get the Hod Shebahod, you'll still be out for yourself. And as long as you're out for yourself, you could love Torah and God as much as you want. But if it's for your own sake, you're never going to make it. See, you have the purest motives, you could have the purest objectives. God, unfortunately, the planet is full of a lot of spiritual people who have like great objectives. They have the right goals, but they're going about it the wrong way, because as long as they're going about it just for their own benefit, they are condemning themselves to the world of chaos. And they're not helping the Tikkun Olam by bringing about the world of healing. Okay, so I want to do. I want to give. By the way, let me just look at some of that. What I said. I want to give credit to the Biala Rebbe. That's a very good Lag BaOmer teaching. I got a lot of this from the Biala Rebbe. Oliver Sholem, not the one that's in the world today, but it's but the one from actually 2 centuries ago. I think it's a very good takes on the Hod Shebahod. But what I want to do really in honor of Rebbe Shimon Bar Yochai, I want to share as much of the introduction to the Idrizuta Kedisha as we can. I think we have about an hour left, so let's see what thoughts. Let me tell you, like by way of introduction, what is the Idrizuta Kedisha? It's called the lesser or the smaller Idra. There's two sections of the Zohar that are called Idrot, and these are very special sections. They're basically the deepest, most secret teachings in the entire Zohar. And this one, the Idrizuta, is especially important because it's a Lag BaOmer Torah. In other words, this is the Torah that Shimon Bar Yochai transmitted, received and transmitted in the last day of his life. And you have a principle, it's a teaching in Torah that what's the most wonderful thing, the most auspicious day that or event that can occur? Is to be, if you can be with a tzaddik on the day, at the moment that they leave the world. That is the most auspicious position that a person can be in. Why? Well, we saw that in the case of Eliyahu Navi and his disciple Elisha. And Elisha was with Eli Navi when he died, and Elisha said, before Eli Navi died, he said, please, Rebbe, bless me with it. I want to be twice as hot as you are. Just give me a double portion of your Chokhmah. Give me a double portion of your Kedusha, which is sort of like pretty amazing thing. We're talking about Eliyahu and Navi. You want to be twice as great as Eliyahu and Navi. Can't even imagine that. And but anyway, Elisha, he had a lot of chutzpah. He says, Eliyahu Navi, he said, give the blessing. I want the blessing before you go. Should bless me that I should have double portion of your powers and holiness. And what did Eliyahu and Navi say to Elisha? He said, keep your eyes on me when I pass. If you see me when I'm transitioning into the next world, you will receive, your blessing is coming. The blessing is why? Because when a Navi is passing from one world to the next, they're moving to a higher plane. It's said that when it's said that tzaddikim are more alive after they leave this world than when they're in this world. And that's why if Elisha could be on a high enough level, he could actually see the neshama of Eliyahu and Navi passing from this world into the next. He was connecting to a power that was greater, that was twice as powerful as the power of light Eliyahu and Navi when he was in this world. You see what I'm saying? You get it? Get the picture? So there's nothing like, that's why we want to give over just a little bit, because when we do a little bit of the transmission of Rashbi on the last day of his life, we're tuning into the most powerful transmission in the whole history of Judaism since Moshe Rabbeinu. And one could even say this is deeper than Moshe Rabbeinu because it's more revealed. Because Rashbi was an Idrizuta of Moshe Rabbeinu. It was the same, was Moshe Rabbeinu in the form of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, in the Shem of Moshe Rabbeinu, in the body and mind of Shimon Bar Yochai, and Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was able to reveal Torah that Moshe Rabbeinu was not able to. Okay, so that's why we on Lag BaOmer we want to tune into the story. So I'm going to jump right into it. I'm going to sing this song one more time just to get into it. Bar Yochai Nimshachta Ashrecha Hashem Ninsaso Mecha Erecha Bar Yochai Shemen Mishkat Kodesh Nimshachta Mimidada Kodesh Nasata Tzitz Nezra Kodesh. He had this incredible jewel on his forehead. Chavushal Roshcha Perecha Bar Yochai Nimshachta Ashrecha Shemin Tzason Mecha Idrizuta Kadisha. It says Tana B'Hahu Yom. It is taught that on the day that Rabbi Shimon Ba'al Yistalka Min Alma, which means the day that he wanted to leave the world, because there's the tradition says it was Talui B'Ritzono. Rabbi Shimon had gone through a period earlier when he had a very serious disease, serious illness, and he almost died. And Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair came to visit him and brought the power to heal him. But in the course of that illness, his life was extended. The causes were there. He should have died in the previous illness, but he, even though during that time he ascended to his place in Gan Eden, that's to say, to the place where he would occupy as an ascended master. He was already up there and knew where it would be and so forth. But he received an extension to his life, and he came back. And he came back now in such a state that he could stay here. And this is actually, I've seen this in other places, that apparently an neshama that is a tzaddik neshama, the neshama of a tzaddik or a bodhisattva can come to a point, and it really is what the whole bodhisattva thing is about. You can come to a point where you have a choice. It's basically they give you a choice. You could ascend right now and stay in Gan Eden, and you can pour down love and wisdom and be available to those who can make contact, who have the merit, who have the zechut to make contact with you. But you'll be in a different world. You won't be in this world anymore, but you will be available to those who can make a connection with you. You'll be beaming out all this love from above and helping as much as possible. Or you can choose to stay in this world. So in many cases, the highest of the high, they stay in this world even though they have earned the right to ascend beyond it. But because of the compassion that they have, they don't want to leave the world yet, even as messy as it is, even though they could be absolved from the obligation to be here. So in other words, the neshama could pay its dues. If the neshama pays all its karmic dues, it doesn't have to be in this world anymore. Then it gets a choice. It could decide to be in this world out of love and compassion and wanting to help with the tikkun in this world, because the healing has to be done within this world, although the healing is done with the help of the ascended masters of the tzaddikim in Gan Eden. They're helping, but they can't do it from there. See the point? So some want to stay, even though they have earned the right, they paid off their karmic debt, they could go, but they stay. So Shimon Bar Yochai stayed until this time. Now you had the choice. This was the day he chose, okay, this is the 33rd of the counting of the Omer. Hod Shabbat, this is the auspicious moment when I'm going to leave this. I'm going to lead the world in the light of the beauty of all beauty, of the gratitude of all gratitude, of the light that reveals the one person, one heart. That's Shimon Bar Yochai. Says, okay, that's the space for me, because if I leave the world on this day, then every year in Lag BaOmer, I'll be able to help all those who are doing the tikkun, who are doing the tikkun of Shiur Omer on the level of Lag BaOmer. You can remember Shimon Bar Yochai, and Shimon Bar Yochai will grace you with a tremendous blast of heart love bliss. And no matter how terrible the world might look at that time, it just wipes out any interest in that at all, because it's such an overwhelming healing for the heart and mind. And that's what Shimon Bar Yochai did. That's what he left for us. You see, so Shimon Bar Yochai was the day he chose to go out of the world. And what was he doing? He was Mesader Meloi, means he was contemplating what he still had to say before he left the world. What are his last words going to be? When the word got out, people could feel, not just any people, but the people who could feel the energy of Lag BaOmer and the energy of the Histalku of Rabbi Shimon. People could feel. There's special people, not just everyone, but all these Chachamim and Tzaddikim came to Rabbi Shimon's house because they knew that this is the day he's going to leave. And as we know, there's nothing like, if you knew the biggest tzaddik in the world was in their last day, if you were anywhere near them, you should run over there as fast as possible. You should get over there. So if you could be there on that last, because the blessing that comes through, it's like a rocket takes off for another galaxy, another world altogether, and in the wake that rocket, all this incredible energy is deposited below. If you could be there, you see that you'd be like Elisha, who was there when Eliyahu and Navi left. And just like you could be twice as healed. The Hava Masader, so the house was full, and they were all there. And who was there? His son Rabbi Elazar was there, and Rabbi Abba, and the rest of the Chavraya. The rest of the Chavraya means that's the other people in his Mandala. Or sometimes to put it in the terms of Rabbi Nachman calls his tree, his Eitz Chaim. There's like every tzaddik has a Eitz Chaim. The Eitz Chaim, it means the Mandala of all those nishamot that constitute the group, that constitute the entity that can hold down and receive and help the tzaddik bring down the Torah. So that Chavrai, and the thing was that they had lost three of them had died. In the last Idra that he had, when he had the last Idra, the energy of that Torah was so high that three of the Chavrai actually died in the middle of the Idra. In the Idra Rabbah, three of them died. So he doesn't have the whole, he only has like 6 left, plus himself. Why? Because you need to have 10. You need to have a minion, to have a mandala. To have a Margaret Beta. So his house was packed because all these people came. And including Rabbi Abba and Rabbi Elazar, who was the son of Rashbi. So Reb Shimon, he looked up, he lifted up his eyes, and he could see that the whole house was packed. So he started crying, and he said, in that other time when I was sick, Pinchas Ben Yair came, and while I was getting my place in Gan Eden ready for my ascent. And then they gave me until now, they extended my life until now. And when I came back, I saw the flame around me. Rebbe Shimon, even though he had balanced the fire, that the fire of the presence of the Shekhinah that was surrounding him to the time he was in the cave, he had learned how to be in the world with that fire without consuming, without burning everything up, without destroying everything because of the judgment, because of judging, because of being so pure that everything would look so terrible that his presence would just destroy it. That's a big thing. So he had learned how to balance that, but when he was sick, the fire went away. He went up into Gan Eden to get his place ready there, and the fire wasn't there. So when he came down, the fire came back, and the fire was with him this whole time up until this last day. He was, to that day, last day of his life, he had this incredible fiery aura around him. Nobody was able to come into his presence without his permission. So he's crying because he saw that now that something was different, because the house was full of all these people. And he saw that the fire wasn't there at that moment. And while they were sitting, he opened his eyes. As he opened his inner eyes, he was looking at the people there in his space. He said, "What are all these people doing, stuffing up my house?" Because they were there. They weren't just the chavrai. They were all the people who wanted to get the bracha. Meaning, which is nothing really wrong with that, but they were out for themselves. They didn't really have the merit to receive the transmission that Rebbe Shimon was about to give over, because it was the last day of his life. So when he opened his eyes, he opened his inner eye, and he looked inside to the levels of Netzach and Hod, which are the inner sources of prophecy. The Askar Esha Baveta, and when he opened his inner eye and looked at the source from which he received his divine transmission, the fire returned and it surrounded his entire house. Nafku Pulver, all the people that didn't belong there, that didn't have the reshut to be there, they all left the house. Fire returned. So they all left the house. The Ishtar of Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Abba, the only ones who were able to remain were his son, Rabbi Elazar, and Rabbi Abba, who was like his Talmud Mufar. They're the only ones who were on the level that they could really receive the transmission that directly that came through Rabbi Shimon. In fact, they were essential to receiving that. The rest of the Chavraya was sitting outside. Only the two of them were there. Rabbi Shimon said to his son, Rabbi Elazar, go outside and see if Rabbi Yitzchak is outside because I am responsible for his neshama. I'm responsible for him. I'm responsible for his neshama means tell him to, if you see Rabbi Yitzchak, tell him that he should get his act in order, that he should because they come here and sit with me because he was a guarantor for the soul of Rabbi Yitzchak. Rabbi Yitzchak was going to have the blessing of leaving this world with Rabbi Shimon. So and what does he say? He says, you tell him, Zaka Cholka, you are so lucky because this is a day that I'm going to leave this world, and I've made a pledge that I'm going to take your neshama with me when I go. So you see how it's the way ordinary people think. A dying, terrible, horrible, oh, scary, there's nothing like that. For a tzaddik, it's nothing like that at all. It's exactly the opposite. The only reason a tzaddik like Rabbi Shimon is even in the world, in this world, is out of compassion for the rest of the people who are suffering here and are completely confused. Doesn't want anything out of this world. He's only here to help. But he has already a place that's in a higher world. In a higher world means that you don't have suffering and mishigas like that in a higher world. In the higher world, it's called Gan Eden. It's the place of bliss. Why is it a place of bliss? Because the reality of God is not hidden there. This is the place where everything is in concealment. Not that it isn't still here, it's just that you can't see it. You have to learn how to see it. And to learn how to see it, you have to be able to remember what you knew before you came into this world, where you came from. Because every neshama came from a higher world in the first place, but they had exhausted the karma that entitled them to be in that higher, purer world, and they come to a point where they have to descend again into this world because they have to more fix it. As soon as you descend into this world, with very few exceptions, even the highest tzaddikim, very few exceptions. There are like a few of these, like what they call wonder kids. What I mean by that is, even the highest tzaddik has to go through tests in this world. As soon as you cross the boundary into this world, you cross the veil that separates this world and the higher worlds, you forget everything that you knew before. And so you have to go through a process of remembering what you already knew. And until you remember enough that you could start healing on a deeper level. Because you have enough, you can't start healing on a deeper level until you remember where you came from. That's the whole problem, is that people have no idea where they came from, and so they don't have the motivation to heal. Because the healing is like is what enables you to return to where you came from. It's a pure, more divine world. This is a world for fixing. It's for fixing. So you have to know that. And again, Reb Miles says the Sor Lehijesh, doesn't matter how terrible this world looks, because it's a place for fixing. It isn't the real world. It's the Baal Davar that wants to tell us this is the real world. We should really care about this is like really all it is. This is not the real world. This is the closed door. It's the hallway between one world and another world. You have to go through here. You come from a higher spiritual world. When when the zechut is used up, that got you to that higher world from your previous Gilgul, you drop back down into this world. When you drop back down this world again, you don't drop down immediately with all of the wisdom that you had in the previous life. You would have to remember all that. So you go through this process. Okay, I'm remembering who I am. At a certain point, you will remember enough. And when you remember enough, you will love God. You'll be in this world, but you'll love God more than anything else that's in it. And of course, the more you love God, you'll eventually, at some point, come to Lag BaOmer, to the Lag BaOmer, because the whole spirit of Omer is the path from the light of enlightenment, which is the first day, which is really what Yitzhak Mitzrayim is, and the path from the gratis, from the enlightenment that you get for free, the path that takes you to where you deserve it. Where you deserve it is Shiur. You have to go through this path. So that's what the whole Shiur of Omer is, going through the path. How do you get from, there is this thing that is real. There is this, God came to me, not an angel. That's Pesach. God came to me, not an angel. I have some, now I'm in this world, but I have some knowledge that God can come to me. The only thing is I don't know how to stay with God. So I got to find a way that I can be with God. And the closer you get to God, which is Spirit of Omer, the closer you're getting to like one person, one being, one heart. The more you get to that, the more you'll know why you're in this world, and the less disturbing it'll be, regardless of what's going on. It isn't. You won't fix the world entirely, but your neshama is getting healed, and the more your neshama is getting healed, the nafkamina is the more healing you have, capacity to heal others you have, being in this world. And so you might choose to stay in this world, even though longer than you have to, because you have such a heart, because you are manifesting the heart of the world, which Heschel said. What is it? A navi, a prophet. You don't have to give over prophecies to be a prophet. To be a prophet, what you have to have is the heart of God in this world. You have to feel what God feels in this world. That's compassion. That's what the compassion is. So let's see where we go. So he's leaving this world. And so it's actually, it's a simcha. Lag BaOmer is a simcha. It's a yortzeit of Shimon Bar Yochai, but people are not crying and weeping and wailing and smacking themselves and beating themselves. No, everybody is joyful. Why? Because in a day when a tzaddik, when a neshama that is complete is leaving the world, it leaves a rishima behind that helps us see that God is in this world no matter what. And therefore, we're happy on Lag BaOmer. It makes us happy because that's the source of happiness, is the recognition of God. The more you can see God, the happier you get. So he sends out his son, Rabbi Elazar. He should get Rabbi Yitzchak, tell him the time has come. He should get over here right away because he has the great merit. He's going to be on the same rocket ship with Rabbi Shimon when Shimon is going up to this other galaxy. And so Rabbi Elazar got up and he went out and Yatvu Kame, the Kif Yadoi, Rabbi Shimon, he raised his hands. Wait, let me left out, which is important. After Elazar went out to get Rabbi Yitzchak, then Rabbi Shimon got up. He got up because as this whole scenario is being set up, what is happening? The Rebbeinu Shalom is starting to come down into the room with Reb Shimon and the Chevraya, not only, as he says later, not only the Rebbeinu Shalom, not only the Rebbeinu Shalom and all the ministering angels, not only the Rebbeinu Shalom and the chariot, which was present in the previous Idra, but in this Idra, which is the final transmission of Rabbi Shimon, not only everything that came from above with the Rebbeinu Shalom, with the Kadosh Baruch Hu, that came to hear the previous Idra teaching, but all the highest tzaddikim from Gan Eden who came down to be there too. In other words, the ascended masters came down to be there to hear the Torah that Reb Shimon was going to reveal. So that's why Rabbi Shimon got up. He got up out of COVID for the tzaddikim from Gan Eden who were coming down to be with the Chavraya. Then he sat down and he smiled and he was extremely happy. And he said, where's the Chevraya? So Elazar went and he brought them in. Because they had been sitting outside, the fire drove the rest of the Chevraya out. Now when the all these tzaddikim from the Gan Eden are coming down with the Rebbeinu Shalom, it's time for the transmission. So he sends them out, brings in the Chevraya again, and then it says they all sat down, because they have to form the Mandala. Because the point is, you have to have, for all this to happen, it's really not there is help coming from above, all that energy is coming down above, but in order to bring it down actually into this world, he has to have the Mandala, he has to have his minion. See, so he brings them in, and they sit around him. They're taking seats around him. They have to form the Mandala. Zakif Yadoi, Rabbi Shimon raised his arms up and he started to pray. He started praying his prayer. And he was in tremendous bliss. He was very, very sameach. And he said, all of the Chevraya that were present in the Idra Rabbah are invited to be present here now. So everybody else left, and only the Chevraya stayed. Rabbi Elazar, which was Rabbi Elazar, his son, Rabbi Abba, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Chia. At that point, Rabbi Yitzchak arrived. Amarle Rabbi Shimon said to Rabbi Yitzchak, you don't know how lucky you are, how fortunate you are. You should be like happier than you've ever been in your life, because you are going to be connected with me when I leave the world on this day. So Rabbi Abba was sitting behind Rabbi Shimon's back, and Rabbi Elazar was sitting in front of him. Rabbi Shimon said, now is the time of an auspicious time. This is Shata de Utahu, the Ana Be'inu Lamia Balak Kisufa. This is an incredibly auspicious time, and I want to be able to enter the next world without any shame. I don't want to be in the world that's coming with shame. Why would he be ashamed? He would be ashamed if he didn't give over everything that it was meant to be over. He had something left. He says, I don't want to leave until I've deposited everything that was given to me, because otherwise I'd get there and I'd feel like I had my life, I hadn't gepoiled, I hadn't succeeded in my life. The Ha Milin Kadishin Delag Valian. So now he says, these are the holy words I'm going to give over now, have never ever been revealed before. And I want to reveal them before the Shekinah. I want to reveal them now before the Shekinah. So it wouldn't ever be said that I left this world not having completed my mission. The Adkan Tamira and Havu Belibai, and they are just to this till now they have been concealed in my heart. I never gave expression. I never said these. Lameo behold the Amanah. I don't want to go into the next world with them in my heart and not having relieved them. And so I'm going to arrange them for you. So this is arrange them for you. So I'm going to make it possible for you to hear it. This is the way he does. So he is like the channel between the source of the Torah and the place in the world where his mandala was present. He says, Rabbi Abba Yichtov, Rabbi Abba will write down the words. The Rabbi Elazar Beri, they had, so it goes back, in the Torah, Moshe Rabbeinu, you have Moshe Rabbeinu and Aaron HaKodesh. And what the way it worked was Moshe Rabbeinu was Kabbat Peh. Everybody couldn't really hear. The words that come to Moshe Rabbeinu were so holy and so high that really the only one could hear him clearly was the Aaron HaKohen. Moshe Rabbeinu would say the words and Aaron HaKohen would repeat them. So when you have like a high transmission like this, you have the one who's channeling what they call channeling today, and you have somebody writing down. You have the scribe who writes down what's coming through them, and you have another one who repeats, who reads basically what's being written down. The rest of the Mandala, the rest of the Hebra, they're repeating it internally, but they don't say it. So they're hearing it inside themselves, coming through Reb Shimon. Rebbe Abba is able to hear it and write it down, gets the transmission, writes it down, and Rebbe Elazar actually can speak it. I'm just going to do a little bit more. Ita Taf Rabbi Shimon Viyati. He put on his tallis and he sat down. He wrapped himself up in his tallis and he sat down. And this is what he said. He said, Lo hametim yitalaluya, lo kol yodei duma. He quotes a verse, it's Psalms 115, 17. Is the dead won't praise Yah, Yud Hey, the local Yodei Duma, not all of those that go down to Duma. Lo hametim, what does it mean? It sounds like that the dead will not praise Yah. Achihu v'dai, this is what it actually means. Inun the ikron metim, those that are called dead. It doesn't mean that when you're dead you won't be able to praise Yah. It means those that are called dead. Because the HaKadosh Baruch Hu is called the living one. It's called Chai. So what does it mean? Those who are called dead means the ones that do not recognize HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The ones that don't know HaKadosh Baruch Hu are called dead. If you don't know, if you haven't remembered where you come from, and you have no knowledge of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then you're called dead. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Chai. And if you know HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you know what life is. You know what life really is. That's what real life is, recognizing HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So it says the Meitim, those who are called dead, will not praise Yah. Why won't they praise Yah? They don't have they have no idea what God is. The Hakuchibrichu Chai Ikre, the Hushare, Beininu Dikun Chayin, that this the Blessed Holy One rests among those that are called living. It's where the Shekhinah is present, where people are conscious of the presence of the Shekhinah, they are called living. If the Shekhinah is conscious to you, then you're really alive. When the Shekhinah is not conscious to you, you're as good as dead. You're a zombie, basically. That's robotic zombie existence, robotic zombie consciousness. But if I'm not aware of the Shekhinah, I might as well be a corpse. I'm just like a zombie. There's who thinks they're alive, but actually isn't. As soon as an neshama, a mind, a heart, a soul, becomes aware of the Shekhinah, immediately they are alive. And they'll still be alive whether they're in this world or not. Because whether you're in this world or not, it's the Shekhinah is everywhere. Whether in the highest world or the lowest place, the Shekhinah is above, the Shekhinah is below, the Shekhinah is in front of me, the Shekhinah is behind me, the Shekhinah is on my right, my left, everywhere. You can't get away really from the Shekhinah. That is what is there. The more you know that, the more you are called alive. And that's why it says the tzaddikim, after they leave this world, are more alive than when they're in this world. Because when you're in this world, you have a challenge. You have the darkness that covers over the light, and you have to uncover the light in this world. It's harder to be in this world because it's a world of challenges. So Kuchibrichu is called alive, and is present, is resting among those that are called alive, but not with those that are called dead, not with the zombies. The Sofe Dikah, the end of the verse says, Lo kol yodei duma, not all those who go down to Duma, kol inu nachtin l'duma, v'gehenim yisharon, because those, and this is a heavy thing, there's a heavy point that he's making here, so those that never remember the Shekhinah, they never recognize what life is, what real life is. They go down to Duma. As they go down to, after they leave this world, they don't go to Gan Eden. Because to go to Gan Eden, you have to have some shtickle of life that you take from this world with your neshama. That's the fuel, that's the ticket to get into Gan Eden. If you're not alive in this world, you're going to go straight to Duma. There's no life there. You have no basis for being alive. Then, of course, the issue is, this is a heavy thing, but that's basically what the position of the Tzahar. You can go, neshamas go to Gehenna to work, or to do tshuva, to do healing that they weren't able to do. If you have enough food and enough light, you may not go straight to Gan Eden. You can still go to Gehenna to work off and do a little more work that you need to do before they admit you to Gan Eden. But if you show up, if you leave this world with no light, you're called dead in this world. You're double dead after you leave this. You have nothing. You have no light to get you to Gan Eden. And that's a terrible fate. So this is L'kol Inun Denafkin, all those that go down to Duma, the Gehenna, Yishtarun, they're going to stay there. And that's, so you don't, this is what, Gurdjieff just said, you can, either you get yourself, you make yourself in a shum in this world, you create a soul for yourself in this world. Creating a soul for yourself means it's not, these terms mean different things to different people. Creating a soul for yourself in this world means choosing life. The Torah says you could choose life, you could choose death. But you have free will, it's up to you. Nobody's going to make you do it. It's up to you. That's the way the world is. It's free will. That's part of the love, because it wouldn't be worth, if you didn't have free will, it wouldn't be worth anything. What would the prize wouldn't be worth anything, because you didn't do anything for it. In this world, you could choose Chaim, choose life. If you choose life, you are creating a soul, and you're called alive. So that's a kind of a Jewish Jivan Mukti, right? A soul that has freedom and real life, even when it's in this dark world. It's in the darkness, but it's free from the killing capacity. If you don't have that life, you're going to wind up in a very dark place after you leave this world. You have no light to console you. If you have none at all, this is what Gurdjieff says. You'll die like a dog. That's what Gurdjieff says. You just if you don't create an neshama for yourself, that's to say, if you don't accumulate life, you don't become a light bearer, a B'nai Or. If you don't become one of the B'nai Or, this is one of the people of light, the light bearers. Then what happens is all your mortal parts, the energy of your body and your mind, you have basically, if you don't accumulate light and love and life, you have no neshama. If you have no neshama, then after you die, all that's going to happen is the energy of your physical body is just going to decompose. Energy doesn't disappear. It just gets recycled. But most people identify with their body and the mind. So your body is definitely going to, it's chemistry, it's chemicals, it's just all those chemicals decompose and they go where they need to go and get recycled. But people think that because they have consciousness, they think they have a soul. But the mind and the soul are not kainu hak, they're not the same thing. So everybody has a mind, but that mind is also just subtle material. It exists. The mind only exists in this world. The mind that people identify with, that's only part of this world. The neshama is from beyond this world. You get what I'm saying? People identify with their mind. The tragedy is if you didn't get a neshama, you have no light to illuminate your mind and your heart and your soul and your body. Then when you die, the atoms of your body, the chemicals of your body, they just gets dispersed in this realm. It'll get recycled, it'll become something else. another body, or it could become almost anything, depending on where it needs to go. But the mind also is going to decompose. It's just made of subtler. That's why it's called the subtle. That it's a subtle material. That the mind is also part of this world. And if you haven't empowered it with any light, any soul light, it's just going to disintegrate. The pieces, the energies of the mind, with all the samskaras, the tendencies, the trends of thought that made up that mind, they're just going to go into the collective unconscious. They're still in this world, and from the collective unconscious, then other beings, human beings, will come into this world, and their minds will be created out of this stuff that's in the collective unconscious. But if you want to get beyond that, you have to remember the neshama, which is what you were before you became a body and a mind. Okay, so this could go on. I mean, this is so deep and there's so much here, but this is what we're going to do, what we can do. And so I want to kind of wrap it up. And I hope it's going to be enough for us for today. So we gave over this Torah. I want to add one piece to it. So that's about the Ikun Chaim, because who are the most alive? He says, when it comes to divine love, the Blessed Holy One is pure love. Actually, the whole world is the expression of divine love. But when it comes to Hashkafa Prati, like, where is the love of God most manifest? It's wherever the tzaddikim are. If there's a neshama in the world, then the Ribono Shel Olam that honors and loves the neshama of the tzaddikim more than anything else. It cares about their covet. Rabbi Shimon said, and then what Rabbi Shimon said, that is the reason why at the time of his parting, it's because God loves the neshama of Rashbi more than anything else. That's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Shekhinah, the entire Merkavah, the greatest tzaddikim from Gan Eden, they're all there to be with Rashbi in the last day of his life, to hear the teaching that he gives over. Because that's the greatest love, that God wants to be there. Remember, Zalman used to like to say all the time, he'd sing, I want to be there when the saints go marching in. Remember, he used to sing there, when the saints go marching in. This is when the saints go marching in. Everybody wants to be there. I want to be in that number when the saints go marching in. I'll be like, God, if I could be with Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai or a neshama like that, wow, there's nothing higher in life that you could experience. It's so high that even the highest tzaddikim are already from Gan Eden are coming down because they want to be in that moment. All the ascended masters are there. All the angels are there. The chariot is there. Mitzvah is there, Shekhinah is there. And I imagine that if we really had a planetary perspective, thanks for being here, folks. If we really had a planetary perspective, you know what? We'd see that every ascended master from every tradition would be there. Every god from every tradition would be there. Every angel from every tradition be there. awakened soul from every tradition would be there. That's what the moment is. So I'm going to finish here. This is it. That's what Lag BaOmer is. And you should really, really get a blast of the Hod Shebahod, that the recognize that in everything that everyone loves, that everyone finds wonderful, is the one reality that is making it possible for human beings to appreciate being in this world. The more that we can do that, we should see, choose life. We should see that one and become like that one, like one being with one heart. And Yehi Ratzon. So may it be. And thank you very much all of you for holding down the Mandala today, so that we could bring down whatever stick of light will give us a little more light, a little bit more love, a lot more chem, and a lot more blessing. And I bless all of us that, from this point on, we should find a way very easy between here and Shiur, and here at Hashem, with God's help, and all those who love us above and below. May we find ourselves present for another session, another transmission on Sinai in the 50th gate on Shiur.